Step 3, 4, and 5 are in their own category, and that's the toss category. Now, step 3 would be how far back over your head do you want to toss the ball? Now, if I were to line up, tossing back over my head would mean tossing the ball this way. So if I were to have the ball, if I were to line up for my serve, tossing back over my head would be like that. Now, it is very hard to hit a good kick serve unless you have at least a decent amount of toss back over your head. You'll always see the pros, they'll always be tossing the ball to a degree back over their head when they're hitting their kick serve. Now, the question is exactly just how much do you want to toss it back over your head? And that's up to you. There is no right answer to this, but I'm going to tell you exactly the benefits of tossing back further over your head versus not tossing so far back over your head. Now, naturally, when you hit a kick serve and you get that wrist action going, the ball is going to be moving a few degrees to the right. It's almost impossible to hit the ball to have that wrist exaggeration and not have the ball naturally move a couple degrees, just because you're hitting on the side of the ball. Now, if I were to toss the ball too far to my right, what happens is that when I get that wrist exaggeration going on 9 o'clock, you'll see the ball naturally swings out to the right. Now, the problem with this is that you're going to be missing the court in that case. But tossing the ball a little bit more back over my head will mean that when I get that wrist snap going, I have a greater angle to work with, and the chances of me hitting it out are less. Now I'm going to toss it back a little bit further over my head and get the same wrist action on that 9 o'clock of the ball, and you'll see I don't miss the court. Now, tossing it back over my head like this will mean it'll be easier to hit that angle and not have to worry about the ball swinging out so much. The other benefit of tossing the ball back over your head is that it becomes significantly easier to hit the 9 o'clock of the ball. If I toss the ball too far to the right, you'll find it is very tough to make contact on this side of the ball, just because it's hard to get your racket head on that edge. And if you try this yourself, you'll see what I mean. You want to be making sure you make contact on the side, but you're also brushing up so you get that spin out to the right, and you also get the spin kicking upwards. When you toss it back up over your head, it'll fall into a bit of a slot and making that brush up a lot easier. Now, when you get that ball kicking up and to the side, it'll move your opponent off the court, and when they make a return, it'll leave the court nice and open for you to hit a clean winner. Now, tossing back over your head, those are the 3 key benefits: the ability to hit the side. If you were to toss the ball too far back over your head, so if I were to toss the ball way back here, it's going to be harder and harder as the ball goes further and further back to really get on the 9 o'clock. Now, the other downside of tossing too far back over your head is that you're going to have to bend your back to a greater degree, and in that case you run the risk of hurting yourself, hurting your lower back, and getting an injury. Lower back injuries are not something to joke about. They're really nasty, and they can really get you out of the game for a long time. So you have to watch out for that. When you're tossing it really far back, is that it also becomes harder to brush up on the back of the ball. Another downside of tossing too far back of your head is that you're going to be having a harder time hitting the 9 o'clock of the ball, meaning that when you do make contact, you're not going to be able to get that angle that you want going to their back end side, and your ball is going to end up going a little bit more to the left, and it's going to sit up right on their forehand for them to crush a winner. So you got to watch out for that. I'll give you an example. If I toss it really far back over my head, you'll see it becomes significantly harder for me to get the 9 o'clock of the ball and get it wide, and it'll end up just going closer to the tee side of the court. And that's me trying to hit my angles. So really the only way to figure out what works best for you is just to play around and experiment, and maybe take a look at some pros and where they're tossing the ball on their kick serve. But every player is different, and really you're just gonna have to play around to figure out what works best for you. Now, a good baseline for that kick serve toss back over your head would be if you were to toss the ball up, so make sure it doesn't hit your head and that it actually falls behind your head when it ends up landing. And that's a good baseline, and I think you can kind of play around and with a few degrees back and forth and figure out what works best for you. Now I'm going to give you a quick demo of my kick serve and how far back over my head I end up tossing the ball. Now, a good exercise for working on tossing the ball back over your head, and toss the ball up and make sure that it lands behind the line of your body or behind your head. So you just toss up and make sure that every single time it falls behind your body.